Hello, everybody. This is Trisha Wolfrey from Your Empowered Self and Ahead for Success. And this is another in my series called Let's Talk Stress. And today I have Selena Mills. Selena Mills from a Restful Space. That's your business name, isn't it? Who's going to talk to us about her relationship with stress and also her specialism, which is about having the space around you free from clutter. Which I think a lot of us struggle with from time to time, some more than most. I know for some people it's quite an issue, isn't it? So welcome, Selena.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. So tell me, what is it that attracted you to becoming a declutter coach?
That's an interesting question. So for myself, I have always yearned for simplicity. Honestly, in the moments where I've been overwhelmed, I've always just yearned for simplicity. And then about 20 years ago, I was working as a feng shui consultant. And I noticed the common theme is that people have too much stuff. So, the first recommendation is always to clear the decks. And so I don't do feng shui so much anymore, but I help people just declutter, clear some space, some thinking space, some space they can rest, because there's so much going on out there. It just feels like a good way to confront themselves and take a moment to see what's going on in life, where they need to take care of themselves, what's next for them.
So confront themselves. What is it about clutter that means they need to confront themselves?
Well, every single thing we own, we make a decision to bring it into our lives and we have some kind of relationship with it. So in the clearing out, people get to learn about themselves because they recognize, why they made those decisions, why they went out shopping in the first place, why they've held on to something that they don't actually like. It's about the relationship with the person who gave it to them, maybe, or, what was going on in their life. And that's why the stuff is just another way in. Does that make sense? To looking at what their life's all about and why they're dealing with the issues they're dealing with.
Yeah, because there are some people I know that they will hold on to everything that their parent bought them because they feel that to let them go is to let go of the parent that might have already passed, and it's a way of holding on to the past, isn't it?
Yes.
But you see these programs with people having so much clutter around them. It's the way that they just live and they don't want to let any of it go. So there is a relationship, isn't there, between clutter and emotions. What else are they not letting go of emotionally? Not just this pile of papers or whatever.
Yeah, so it's, as you say, it's about the relationships. It's about maybe guilt, or not being approved of by a parent or a grandparent or something, because of what that person would have done, and their beliefs about stuff. And I suppose in those generations, people were more money poor, and these days we're more time poor. So people had different values and different beliefs.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. My father, before he's not with us anymore, he bought me a handbag, which he'd never bought me a present himself. It was always my mother that bought presents. And he bought me this handbag and he was so thrilled to bits about it. And so I've still got it, but it's not one that I would ever use. It's not my style, but it was so thrilled. So that has absolute meaning, but it is the only thing that I have like that of him. So is that me being emotionally sensible, or is that me being silly? What would your view be on that? Actually, you have to be careful because it's my dad's.
Yeah,
I've thought about it a lot because I do declutter, and I think I can't let go of that.
Interesting. Well, the first thing, of course, is that when I'm coaching clients around this, it's not what I think. It's never what I think.
Yeah.
I would put that straight back to you and see how that feels to you. When you look at that handbag, what happens to your energy? If you have a room of, as you quite rightly pointed out, you've only got one thing. If you've got a room of things, that's a slightly different matter. If you've got one and you look at it and you think warmly of your dad, that's a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah,
I
I
might
shall
say,
keep it. I don't know if you can tell I'm filling up just talking about it. So yeah, this is something that I will keep because it makes me feel warm. But then there are other things that I have that I think I should keep that don't make me feel that way. And those are the things that what's her name? There's a famous lady where you should say thank you, and then
Marie Kondo.
that's
Yeah,
right, and then just
yeah,
let it go. So I'm going through that. I don't have a great deal of clutter. I don't think people see me as a clutter person, but they, well, it's for me to say, I guess, isn't it? But so I'm going through that and not being so guilty about not keeping things that aren't really me, apart from that
yeah.
handbag.
Yes, and the thank you is to just acknowledge the role that that item played in your life, because
Yeah,
we take something, we take a lesson or some joy or some use out of every single thing. So
yeah,
it can feel overwhelming just contemplating, all this stuff I've got, how am I going to deal with it all? And
yeah,
just like anything in life, we deal with one thing at a time. So we look at
yeah,
the handbag, you hold it, you see how you see how your body reacts.
yeah.
Because our bodies react
Full of
straight away
love.
before
Yeah,
we start thinking,
yeah,
what should we
just,
do? Or what are all, what's the rational way to deal with this? Our
yeah,
bodies react. So one thing at a time, the handbag, and then whatever else, those other few things you're
yeah.
thinking about.
That's definitely a
Um,
keeper.
that is definitely a keeper. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And it's interesting. So normally I'm very tidy, but in the past few days, I've had two major projects on where I've had to wait for people to come back to me. So my desk, you can't tell, but it's awash with when those people come back, I need to refer to that quickly. When those people come back, I need to refer to that quickly. And I can't tell you the strain it causes by having these things around. But I need my head in the right gear for when they call back. So
Yeah.
it's actually quite I find it stressful, but there are other people that find it quite comfortable. Yeah,
There's
comforting rather.
there are people that say they work well creatively and with lots of stuff around. So yeah, I suppose we have to acknowledge we all work differently, but it's good for you. Clearly know that you work better. Is that right? Am I hearing you work better with
Order.
clear space around you? And
Yeah.
paper, you're so right. Paper is one of the most stressful things, because just because it's one bit of paper, it's not. It's a bit of paper with lots of things that we need to do, and probably several decisions about each thing. Paper, we might talk about that later. Paper, I think, is one of the most important things to get rid of.
Oh, I'm trying very hard, but this is actually a pile. It's my insurance, so it's like that, and
Mm.
lots of different things. Oh, it's a nightmare. Anyway, let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you. Putting the spotlight on you there. So tell me, what stresses you out, Selena?
So I think what stresses me out is trying to do too much, is trying to get that balance right between all the things I want to do, all the things I need to do to retain good mental and physical health. It's that balance. That's my stressor. And I know I have loads of tricks like you have to deal with this stuff, but it's a daily habit I need to,
Mm,
practice,
mm.
and it stresses me out.
So I hear you say what I want to do and what I should do. So how do you make that differentiation?
Did I say I should?
I think you did, or did I make that up? I think you did.
Yeah. Well, should, as in there are things, we have to feed ourselves, and I have teenagers that require the things that teenagers need. And, there are things in life that we have less choice about, and things in life we want to do more of. And, it's a juggling act, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, sorry, your question was how do I
Uh,
decide between those things?
yeah, that might have been a mean question. That's
It's at the end of the day, it's getting the balance, isn't it? So that if
yeah,
it's a day where there are lots of things I need to do, so at the moment, I need to get my son out looking at various cities. We can't do university open days, but we have to go out and drive around the country and just look at places. And that, to me, is quite a big stress, because it's all over the country. He's learning to drive, so he's actually doing
that's
the
really
driving.
stressful.
So there are things like that. It's not a should, it's actually a lovely thing, but it's a lot going on at the moment. At
Yeah,
a time where I'm also working, I'm looking after my daughter. There's so it's about balance at those times when it's very busy, and also taking care of ourselves, because you know, I have a history of sometimes fatigue, and it's really, really important that I spend time sometimes just breathing in and out.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
so you know that's been a theme of a lot of the interviews is just breathing, breathing and focusing on your breath. But I think also looking at what can I do today that will have the biggest impact and make me feel really good that it was done when you've got lots of pulls on your time.
yeah,
That's quite a good thing to do. And how am I taking care of myself today? So if you're somebody who does a lot of shoulds, that is a reminder that actually, you know, one of the shoulds is taking care of myself. And I noticed that I've put that right at the bottom of my list. That needs to come up a little bit. So those little conversations with ourselves can be really, really helpful as well.
yes, and we persuade, you're right, it goes to the bottom of the list because we persuade ourselves that actually other things are more important, or you won't be able to rest until all those things are ticked off.
Yeah.
And yeah, you've just got to slot it a bit higher up, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Resting in advance to preserve your energy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've given us your tip there as well, or was there a different tip that you wanted to share?
For dealing with stress.
Like your own tip. So not to do with clutter, because we'll talk about that in a minute. But
My own tip for dealing with stress. It is about space. It's about the physical space at home. Honestly, that's why I do the work, the decluttering work, because that for me is having a spacious environment is very important.
so
And yeah,
let's share then the tips that you have about what people can do with their space that and clutter that will help with their stress levels or reduce their stress levels.
okay. When we started talking about paper, my experience is that it's one of the hardest things for people to clear, but it's one of the biggest, you get the biggest payback for focusing on paper.
Mm.
You've frozen a bit. Oh, you're back. Can you
Have
hear
I?
me?
Oh. I can hear you fine, yeah. Now you've frozen a bit. Oh, can you hear me? No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Just carry on talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Yeah. So it's yeah.
Just
I think
carry
you're
on
back.
talking.
Okay. So yeah, paper. It's a hard one to tackle, but you get a really good payback because, as I
Yeah.
say, each bit of paper holds a lot of, you know, there are a lot of attachments to what's on paper, and a lot of shoulds and a lot of to-dos that
Yeah.
keep us from, you know, the peace and the calm that most of us are desperate for, really, aren't we? With in this age of so much going on, so much information, you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how do you advise people to tackle the paper mountain that they have? It may not be a mountain, of course, it might be a little hill, but what is the best way of dealing with it?
Like anything, one piece at a time, but I would say, I honestly am a big fan of Marie Kondo, who you mentioned before. I've done her training, and so I'm beginning to consult more in her way. And she would say her paper advice is get rid of everything. Now, clearly, you keep your driving license and your birth certificate, and you keep what you absolutely need to keep, but we know what those documents are. And so, honestly, the best thing to do it if you're game is to get all your paper out, have a look how much is there, and then check in with your body and how it feels. And then go through and recognize what has to be kept, what needs actioning, and there isn't very much else. If there is very much else, I would say try and put some time aside to go through that, because it's only when you've got, you know, a small pending pile and the papers that you know you need and not very much else, that's when, you know, you have that peace and clarity in life.
Mm.
But it's a big ask, that, you know, and that's why people do come to people like me to hold their hand and give them support going through it. It's
Mm.
toughy, but it's really worthwhile. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's just interesting. Throw everything away. So I'm trying to be really, really good at recycling.
Mm.
And
That was regarding paper.
paper, yeah,
That was about the paper. Yeah.
I know. So I have collected. I've done a massive declutter in the last few months, and I've noticed that I've got some paper I don't need anymore. They had something printed on one side that I don't need, but the other side was blank. So I'm using that as my jotting paper. But I'm finding it so stressful because now I've just got lots of scraps. They're not scraps, but to me they're scraps because it's not tidy. And I realised actually this does not work for my own peace of mind at all.
Having so much scrap.
Yeah, I mean, I have made it neat, so it's in a kind of, I'm not going to show you, but I've made it neat, but I thought this just doesn't help my mind to be ordered. So I have to go back to I've got a book and online as well, just do that and just be at peace with I'm not recycling these things as well as perhaps I could. Those kinds of things. But it's kind of interesting how you get rid of all of the paper, like, so I mentioned insurance documents. You kind of need to keep those.
You need to keep some of those, clearly, but I would challenge you to have another look about, do you really need to keep all of it? Because a lot of information is online. You know, if you need to check the terms and conditions of your policy, you're very likely to be able to get that online. If the worst came to the worst, you know, you could pick up the phone, presumably. So usually there is a certain amount you can get rid of, and it's surprising. We get a lot of comfort from having paper, and again, our generations before us have said, you need to keep this. It's been drummed into us. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
If you go through it again, I suspect you'll probably find that some of that can go. Yeah. And clearly, some of it, there's no question you have to keep.
Exactly. So the last year, maybe, the current one, but the previous years you don't need to keep. At all. Yeah.
And some people, I'm working with someone at the moment from the she's from the States. She's been living in this country for several decades, but she knows she has to keep a lot of paper because occasionally, American law, tax law requires her to provide masses of evidence. So she really is an unusual case. She has to keep a lot, but she doesn't have to keep it in her filing system in her office where she looks at it every day and it drags her down. She can keep, as you say, this year's in her office, and she can get a box in, that you buy paper in, the big cardboard box, and put it in a shelf in the garage because she's likely to never need it again.
Yeah.
She needs it, but she does not need it right in front of her, so she can create a much nicer office space.
So the garage is an archive.
And that's a one-off. Yeah. That's a one-off. We don't want to keep loads of stuff anywhere in our space at all. No, I'm just saying that, occasionally.
No, I was agreeing with you.
I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Okay, and you've got a book that you want to recommend, haven't you, Selena?
Yeah, one of my favourites is Clutter, just called Clutter Busting by Brooks Palmer. And I talk about that. It's a very, he's a stand-up comic, I think, actually. And he works as a sort of clutter consultant. And it's just a very creative, it's got lots and lots of little exercises of creative ways of looking at your clutter and observing as a third party how ridiculous we are sometimes about our stuff. So yeah, that's a small and thin and fun read.
Oh, lovely. That's really good. Okay. So that's really, really good. Thank you, Selena, for being interviewed today. Hope you enjoyed it too.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'll see everybody at the next interview. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.